Come sit, child. I have a story your heart has been waiting for.
When most people hear the words face transplant, they think of impossible miracles. But what they rarely understand is the weight carried by the families. Slow breath, and the unimaginable journey of the one who receives it. Today, I want to tell you a story. A story of a mother, a grieving heart, and a young girl whose life had been shaped by hospitals, surgeries, and quiet suffering. This is not a story of science alone. This is a story of love. The girl who would one day receive the face, her name was Emily. She had been in and out of medical rooms since she was 9 years old. A freak accident, something that took only seconds, had changed her entire future. A gas heater in her home malfunctioned, followed by a flash fire, and Emily endured burns that no child should ever bear. The doctors saved her life. But they could not save her face. Multiple surgeries, tissue expansions, grafts. Yet each one only brought her halfway to what she needed. Human skin can only be stretched so far. Only heal so much. Only recover to a point where the mirror becomes tolerable. But Emily's mirror remained a battlefield, scarred, uneven, and painfully tight. Still, she never complained. Not once. Her mother often said that Emily had the strength of 10 adults hiding inside a child's body. But strength, even the strongest kind, has limits. One day, after yet another reconstruction attempt, her surgeon sat down beside her bed. His eyes were tired, those tired eyes that doctors carry when they know the truth will hurt. Emily, we're reaching a point where we cannot improve your facial mobility much further. Your skin has gone through too many procedures. Emily already knew. She had known for months. Talking was difficult. Eating required patience. Her smile, if it could be called that, was a tight pull of skin that barely lifted. What are my options? She whispered through lips that barely moved. Well, the surgeon inhaled slowly. There is one possibility. But it is rare. It is complex. And it requires a donor. He paused. A full or partial facial transplant. Emily blinked. The phrase didn't sound real. She had read about face transplants once, only 47 had been done in the entire world at the time. Each one demanded a perfect match, months of preparation, years of recovery. And an overwhelming decision for a donor's family. Because to give a face means they must lose someone else. Miles away, another girl existed in a different life. Her name was Lily. Lily was bright. Kind. Her laughter filled every room she entered. She loved painting, sunshine, loud music, and helping her mother cook. She was one of those people who felt like a burst of light in an ordinary world. And then, one morning, that light went out. A truck driver who hadn't slept in 12 hours drifted across the center line on the highway. In seconds, everything changed. Lily never made it to school that day. Her mother, Sarah, received a call no parent deserves to hear. When Sarah reached the hospital, she knew deep down that her little girl wasn't coming back. Machines breathed for her. Beeping devices kept the illusion of life alive. But the doctors told the truth with eyes full of compassion. Lily's brain was gone. Her body would not recover. Grief does strange things. It freezes time, stretches it, breaks it, and reshapes it into something unrecognizable. Sarah sat there, holding her daughter's hand, talking to her even though she knew she couldn't hear. Then a nurse came. Gently. Respectfully. And she asked the question families fear, yet one that saves lives every day. Do you know if Lily was an organ donor? Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, she told me she wanted to help people. She said if anything ever happened to her, she wanted to give parts of her life to someone else. The nurse hesitated. There's another request. It's extremely rare, but there is a girl who could benefit from a facial donation. You do not have to decide now. Sarah froze. Her daughter's face. Her beautiful face. The thought tore through her heart like a blade. How could she say yes? How could she let go of the one thing she kissed every night before bed? But she asked. Tell me, would this help someone live a better life? The nurse nodded. She's been suffering for years. This could give her a second chance. Sarah sobbed. No mother should ever have to decide something like this, she whispered. But if my little girl can't stay, then let her help someone stay. The moment the medical team received approval, a quiet urgency filled the hospital. Facial transplants are among the most difficult procedures in modern medicine. Emily was rushed to the transplant center. Her family stayed close, holding on to hope. Across the hall, Sarah sat alone, staring at her daughter's drawings. She didn't know if she made the right choice. But she whispered, if this helps another girl smile again, then Lily's light didn't go out. It simply moved. Morning light filtered into the recovery unit as Emily lay on the hospital bed, still unconscious but stable. The transplant was complete, and now came the long waiting. Pause twos. Waiting for swelling to go down. Waiting for blood vessels to hold. Waiting for nerves to begin their slow, almost invisible journey toward connection. Her mother sat beside her, barely blinking, fingers gently gripping her daughter's hand. She whispered small prayers, tiny fragments of hope sewn together with fear. Baby, you've come so far. Just keep fighting. Emily did not respond. Not yet. But her chest rose and fell with a steady rhythm. A quiet reminder that she was still here. Hours passed. Then a day. Then two. Doctors moved in and out, adjusting medicine, checking monitors, inspecting the transplanted facial tissue with careful eyes. With each visit, her mother held her breath. Is she stable? Will she wake soon? Does it look okay? And each time, the lead surgeon would answer gently. She's progressing exactly as expected. Transplants take patience. He knew the fear inside her. All parents share the same fear when their child lies still on a hospital bed. But Emily had always been a fighter. On the third morning, just after sunrise, a nurse doing routine checks noticed something. Emily's fingers twitched. Only for a moment. Barely noticeable. But a spark nonetheless. Emily, the nurse whispered. Can you hear me? Another twitch. Then her eyes moved, just slightly, as if trying to chase the light behind her eyelids. She opened them halfway, blinking slowly, adjusting to the brightness of the room. Shapes blurred. Colors shifted. And then, her mother's silhouette sharpened. Mom. Emily murmured, voice raspy. Her mother burst into tears. Yes, sweetheart. I'm right here. Emily tried to lift her hand but couldn't. She felt heavy, stretched, numb. And then confusion washed across her expression. What happened? Her mother swallowed. The surgery is done, Emily. Emily blinked, eyes moistening. The transplant? Her mother nodded, smiling through tears. Yes. You made it. Emily could not feel her new face yet. Nerves needed time, months, even a year or more, to regenerate. But she understood something huge had taken place. Something irreversible. Something life-changing. She tried to speak, but the doctor touched her shoulder gently. Just breathe. Slow and steady. Your body needs to adjust. Emily obeyed. Slow breaths. Slow thoughts. Slow acceptance of a world that suddenly felt new and fragile. Days turned into a rhythm. Medication, rest, physical checks, whispered encouragements. Emily slowly became more aware of her surroundings. And of her own reflection. But the doctors did not allow her to see her face yet. We need the swelling to go down. It'll take time. You'll see it when you're ready. But how does someone prepare to see a stranger in the mirror? Even if that stranger holds the promise of a better life? Emily lay awake at night thinking about the donor. Who was she? How old? Did she smile often? Did she love the sun? Did she have dreams unfinished? She knew someone had lost a daughter, a sister, a piece of their world. And Emily felt a weight of gratitude she could not express. Meanwhile, Sarah, the donor's mother, had returned home. A home now filled with silence. A home with a bedroom she could not step into without breaking. A home where her daughter's absence echoed louder than any sound. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chair where Lily used to sit. She imagined her laughter, the way she swung her feet under the table, the way she always asked for extra syrup on pancakes. The stillness hurt. Neighbors brought food. Friends visited. Everyone tried to help. But grief does not respond to casseroles or soft words. It lingers. It surrounds. It becomes the air you breathe. Sarah often wondered if she'd made the right decision. Even though she knew Lily would have wanted it. The ache of not seeing her face again was almost unbearable. But one evening, while sitting alone on Lily's bed, she whispered, "If my girl can help someone else live without pain." Then her love didn't end. It just changed shape. Back in the hospital, Emily gradually regained strength. Physical therapists guided her through gentle movements. Speech specialists taught her how to re-coordinate muscles that were not originally hers. Every motion felt foreign, new pathways firing, new sensations flickering like sparks in the dark. "You're doing amazing," one therapist told her. "Even tiny movements are victories." Emily nodded. She believed them. But inside, she carried fear. What if I look worse? What if people stare even more? What if I never feel normal? Questions spiraled, tightening her breath. The unknown is a heavy thing. Her mother sensed it. She sat beside Emily, brushing hair from her cheek. "You don't have to be brave every second," she whispered. "You just have to be you." Then came the day the doctors said the words Emily had been dreading. "It's time to see your reflection." They led her to a small room with soft lights and a large mirror. Her heart thudded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Her hands trembled. Her breath shook. "Are you ready?" the doctor asked quietly. "No," she whispered. "But I want to try." The doctor removed the cloth covering the mirror. Emily closed her eyes. She inhaled. Held the breath. Then opened them. A face looked back. Not her old face. Not quite the donor's. Something in between. Swollen, delicate, healing. But human. Whole. Soft in ways she had not seen for years. Her hand lifted. Slow. Shaking. She touched her cheek gently, feeling almost nothing. Tears welled in her eyes. "It's beautiful," her mother whispered behind her. Emily kept staring, unable to speak. Not from fear, but from overwhelming relief. For the first time since the accident, she didn't see scars. She saw possibility. And she whispered, barely audible, "Thank you, whoever you are." Recovery deepened into routine. Emily's days filled with therapy, medication checks, and small victories. Each morning brought a new milestone, an attempt to smile, a slow piece of food swallowed, a blink that grew steadier. She relearned movements that most of us take for granted. Therapists would sit beside her, guiding exercises in the mirror, encouraging her to lift an eyebrow or purse her lips. Each motion was awkward at first. Muscles belonged to someone else, nerves had to rewire, the brain had to remember how to use a face it hadn't known for years. "You're doing wonderfully," her speech therapist would say. "It takes time. The nerves grow slowly, but they do grow. And when they connect, you'll feel things you haven't felt in a long time." Emily took those words into her chest. Sometimes hope felt fragile, an ember under ash. But she learned to tend it. She practiced at night with a small flashlight, watching the contours of her jaw and lips change as swelling went down. Little by little, the stranger in the mirror became more familiar. Meanwhile, the donor family, Sarah and her husband, moved through a different kind of recovery. Grief has a language of its own. It doesn't always end when the surgery room doors close. Their days filled with memory, with rituals to honor the child they lost. They visited Lily's favorite park bench. They planted sunflowers near the window she loved. They cried in the quiet hours and shared stories of her laugh, the way she organized crayons by color, the secret notes she would slip into lunches. They also received letters. Notes arrived from Emily's family and the medical team, gentle updates about her progress. Each line was carefully written, graceful, respectful, and always grateful. The letters mattered. They became a bridge that allowed Sarah to know the result of her decision without feeling like she intruded. Months passed. Emily began to eat soft foods on her own. She learned to whistle, clumsily at first, and then with greater clarity. The first time she laughed in front of company, her chest felt as if it might burst from relief. She attended therapy sessions with a small notebook where she recorded little triumphs, could close left eye by 10% today, smiled sibling in hallway, took photo with friend. Friends visited when she felt ready. Some cried. Others celebrated by bringing silly hats and goofy toys that made the room feel light. The world did not transform overnight. There were still stares from strangers, awkward questions at grocery stores, and school corridors where gossip fluttered. But Emily discovered a strength that came not from the way she looked but from the way she stood inside her life. She became patient with herself in ways she had never learned to be. At the hospital, clinicians monitored her immunosuppressant levels carefully. Those medications kept her body from rejecting the transplanted tissue, but they also carried side effects, fatigue, susceptibility to infections, and mood fluctuations. Medical care became a balancing act, protect the new face while protecting the whole person. Remember, her doctor told her mother, this is the beginning of a long process. Nerve regeneration takes time, and emotional adjustment is just as important as physical healing. Emily attended counseling sessions. There she spoke about identity, about the curious sensation of recognizing a reflection that had been, in a sense, borrowed. Her therapist asked questions that helped her anchor herself. Who are you beyond your face? What do you want to do when healing gives you choices? She answered honestly. She wanted to study art again. She wanted to feel the sunlight on her cheeks without fear. She wanted to volunteer with children who had scars so they might learn to find joy. Dreams returned, not as distant fantasies but as something she could shape. Seasons turned. The lake outside the rehabilitation center shimmered silver and then glassy in the winter. On bright days Emily ventured outdoors with sunglasses and a cap. The warmth of the sun on her skin felt like forgiveness. She learned to move with gentleness, knowing her body contained both loss and gift. Communication between families continued, always mediated by hospital staff to preserve privacy and comfort. A mediated meeting was arranged months later so that Emily could see the woman who had given her the chance to heal. The meeting would be carefully planned, with mental health professionals present to support both families. Everyone wanted it to be both tender and safe. The day of the first meeting, Emily prepared herself mentally. She wrote a small card. Her hand shook as she wrote, "Thank you. I will honor her." She folded it twice, placing it in her pocket like a talisman. She felt gratitude that coexisted with guilt, the weird sensation that her good fortune was built upon someone else's loss. Her mother reassured her quietly, grief and gratitude can live together. That's okay. They met in a quiet, sunlit room with chairs placed at a respectful distance. Sarah entered slowly, carrying a small bouquet of Lily's favorite wildflowers. Her face carried the kind of exhaustion that only long grief can etch, a softness around the eyes, a deliberate steadiness. She sat down, and for a moment neither woman spoke. Two lives connected by a radical act of giving. Their hands found each other across the gulf of experience, one handed over by loss, the other by healing. "I'm Sarah," she said simply. "This is Lily's mother." Emily nodded, tears brimming. "I'm Emily. Thank you so much." They spoke slowly, carefully. Sarah asked about the small things, the color of Emily's favorite sweater, whether she liked strawberries. Emily answered with honesty and warmth. They laughed and cried in equal measure. For Sarah, seeing Emily alive and smiling, still young and full of plans, felt like a small patching of the fabric that had been torn. The two families found ways to honor both experiences: memorials for Lily, celebrations for Emily's recovery. Community events raised awareness about organ and tissue donation. Articles were published, with permission, to highlight the humanity behind clinical headlines. Both mothers realized that the medical miracle needed a human context, stories, faces, and the long arc of aftercare. Still, life carried forward with its ordinary rhythms: school projects, teacher conferences, supermarket runs. Emily adapted to routines that once felt impossible. She learned to explain her surgery only when she wanted to, teaching her peers about resilience more than about scars. One afternoon, Emily stood before a small group of younger patients in the hospital's pediatric wing. She brought paints and brushes. Her voice trembled at first, then she spoke with surprising confidence. "You don't have to be what others expect," she told them. "You don't have to hide your story. You can use it to help others. I'm living proof of that." The kids painted. They laughed. It was a simple afternoon, but for Emily it felt like reclaiming life. As the year progressed, Emily continued to improve. Sensation returned gradually to parts of her face: the tickle of a breeze, the warmth of a kiss on the cheek, the pressure of a hand placed in comfort. She learned to respond not only physically but emotionally to these stimuli. Each new feeling arrived like a small miracle. The second year after the transplant brought new challenges and deeper reflection. Emily's body had settled into the rhythm of maintenance: daily pills, periodic scans, and appointments, but the psychological landscape of living with a transplanted face continued to evolve. She attended group therapy sessions with other transplant recipients. Conversation ranged from practical tips, how to manage medication side effects, to more intimate topics of identity and belonging. Some members had kidney or liver transplants, others had facial tissue grafts. The shared experience knit them together, offering solace in knowing they were not alone. "You are not just what you look like," one counselor told the group. "You are a person who has endured, who chose to continue, who believes in tomorrow." Emily found strength in those words. She began to take small steps toward independence: a short unpaid internship at a local community center teaching art, a weekend trip with a friend to a nearby town, volunteering at a summer camp for children with burns. She learned to pace herself. She learned boundaries. Most importantly, she learned compassion for her own process. Meanwhile, Sarah and her family found ways to keep Lily's memory alive that felt meaningful rather than hollow. They launched a foundation in Lily's name aimed at supporting burn survivors and families considering donation. The foundation provided counseling, financial aid for medical travel, and educational resources on trauma recovery. Through this work, Sarah discovered purpose in the face of profound loss. Over time, the two families' relationship matured into something neither could have predicted: an alliance of healing. They attended conferences together to speak about the human side of transplantation. Their story replaced sensational headlines with real human faces and voices, showing both the miracle and the cost. Public reaction, at times, was complicated. Some people expressed awe and gratitude. Others asked intrusive questions or made insensitive comments. Emily learned to navigate curiosity with grace, choosing when to share and when to guard her privacy. One difficult moment occurred when a viral video misrepresented the medical details, suggesting that Emily now owned the donor's identity. The families faced painful misinterpretations. They responded with clear statements about autonomy, consent, and the profound respect owed to donors and recipients. The hospital supported them, publishing thorough information and offering interviews that emphasized ethics and aftercare. In private, both women handled their grief and gratitude differently. Emily sometimes felt guilt, an odd survivor's remorse that came from being alive because someone else had died. She sought therapy to make sense of those feelings, learning to recognize that gratitude and guilt can coexist without negating one another. "Your life is a continuation of a kindness," her therapist said. "Living fully is a tribute." Emily began to live fully. She organized an art exhibition showcasing work from patients' and donors' families, with proceeds supporting rehabilitation programs. The exhibit displayed color, texture, and stories, paintings that captured sunsets, hands, small domestic scenes, and the stubborn beauty of daily living. The exhibit opened on a rainy evening. Guests arrived under umbrellas, carrying warmth and curiosity. Sarah and her husband stood together by a corner that displayed children's drawings. Emily greeted visitors with a quiet smile. She felt at peace hosting a space that honored both loss and gift. Years passed. Medical follow-ups continued, but life, honest, real life, unfurled. Emily graduated with an art certificate. She began teaching at local workshops. Her hands, the very hands that had once painted with uncertainty, now guided young ones to explore color without fear. She met people who admired her courage more than her appearance. Sarah, too, found pockets of joy between the grief. She volunteered with the foundation, speaking to parents about the complex emotions surrounding donation, providing steady companionship to those making agonizing choices. She and Emily sometimes exchanged messages, a photo here, a note there, small rituals that tethered them across the gulf of experience. In time, they both realized that the human story surrounding transplantation deserved nuance. It wasn't a simple tale of replacement. It was an ongoing process of care, consent, and mutual respect. The families worked to normalize those conversations, advocating for improved mental health services for donors' families and more robust community education. One autumn afternoon, Emily received an email inviting her to speak at a medical ethics symposium. She hesitated, then accepted. When she spoke, she explained not just the surgical technique but the personal truths, the fear, the slow rebuilding, the gratitude that demanded action. Her speech was met with a standing ovation, less for theatricality and more for humanity. "Science can do incredible things," she told them. "But without human compassion, it's only mechanism. The real miracle is how people choose to respond to each other in moments of crisis." By the third year, Emily's face had settled into a familiar rhythm. Expressions flowed more naturally. She laughed freely. She kissed her mother openly. She continued to feel keenly the moral complexity of her story, but she also understood that life had given her a second chapter she could write with intention. In the years that followed, both families built lives that honored their heartaches and their hopes. Emily's path continued to be one of steady reclamation, of sensation, of art, of purpose. She learned that solace could be cultivated in simple rituals, morning tea, a walk by the river, painting with friends. Sarah took part in memorial events for Lily, a day that mixed laughter and remembrance. She read Lily's old school essays aloud to an audience who listened with trembling attention. The foundation they started helped funds for surgeries and counseling, creating a tangible legacy from a loss that felt immense. Their story rippled outward. Other families discovered donation as an option. Medical centers strengthened their support systems for bereaved families. Ethics boards considered how to involve donor families in post-transplant communications, voluntary, dignified, and trauma-aware. Emily eventually married a patient coordinator she had worked with during her recovery, someone who had admired her commitment to service. Their ceremony was small: string lights, friends from recovery groups, and a cake covered in edible flowers. Sarah attended, sitting quietly in the corner with a photograph of Lily pinned to her jacket like a small talisman. She smiled when Emily and her partner danced. It was a soft, strange blessing, a moment that felt like permission to be joyful again. Time did not erase grief. Instead, it changed form. It became part of the architecture of family life, rooms of memory built into ordinary days. When Emily cleaned her apartment, she would sometimes find a small, pressed flower Sarah had mailed after Lily's birthday. She placed it in a jar on her windowsill like a sacred object. Years into the future, Emily stood before a group of medical students. Her hair was streaked with silver at the temples, a sign that life moved on. She spoke calmly, with the kind of patience that comes from hard-won wisdom. "Remember this," she told the students. "A face transplant is more than an operation. It is a relational act. There are people on both sides of the table whose lives are forever altered. The medicine must always be paired with humanity." Sarah listened from the audience that day. Afterwards, she and Emily shared a warm embrace. They had both arrived at a place neither expected, a recognition that life can contain both terrible loss and generous beauty at once. They had created meaning from sorrow and service from loss. When people asked Emily what she felt when she looked in the mirror now, she would take a moment, breathing deliberately. "I feel gratitude," she said. "Sometimes sorrow. But mostly gratitude. Gratitude that someone once made a decision, out of love, that allowed me to live fully. I carry that every day." And Sarah would say, when people asked how she endured the hardest choice of her life, "We continue. We carry her. We channel our sadness into helping others. And somewhere in laughter and in ordinary small acts, Lily is still with us." This story is not designed to comfort us with easy answers. It asks us to live with complexity, to hold grief and generosity in the same palm, to respect the reality that miracles often demand sacrifice, and to honor the people behind headlines. If this story moved you, consider sharing your thoughts. Talk to your loved ones about the power of donation. If you are facing a difficult choice, seek trusted counsel and compassion. And remember that sometimes, the most profound gifts are the ones that travel through sorrow into someone else's life. Thank you for listening. Live kindly. Help when you can. Remember the people we met in this story, two families forever connected by loss, by love, and by a gift that changed everything.
Thank you for watching and listening to my stories.
Remember to like, share, and subscribe to Voice of Grandma.